This is the ModRetro Chromatic, a portable FPGA console built to play your old Game Boy and Game Boy Color cartridges. I should say up front, most of my nostalgia sits firmly with the original Game Boy, not so much with the Color or the Advance. The Chromatic arrives in a colourful box splashed with retro artwork, inside and outside. In the box you'll find the console, some batteries, and a Tetris cartridge, which is very reminiscent of the original Game Boy launch bundle. The first thing you'll notice is the size. The Chromatic is smaller than the original Game Boy, but it's built like a tank. The shell is metal, which is a very nice upgrade. The buttons are familiar, but slightly tweaked. The directional pad of the Chromatic skips the textured ridges of the original, and it also feels far less spongy when pressed. The start and select buttons are hard plastic instead of the original rubber. The A and B buttons are almost identical to the original, but do feel a little more precise when pressed. Overall, the buttons feel more responsive than the famously squishy Game Boy ones. The volume dial is also much larger and easier to adjust mid-game, which is a very small mercy for anyone that remembers the tiny original dial. The contrast dial has also been retired, replaced with an in-system menu. Thankfully, the 3.5mm headphone jack survives. ModRetro actually sell a retro-style headphone set if you'd like to buy one from them, or you could just use whatever you already own. On the Chromatic, the speaker has moved from the front to the bottom and is alarmingly loud. The first time I switched the Chromatic on, I nearly leapt out of my chair. The power options are also very flexible on the Chromatic. It runs on 3 AA batteries rather than 4, which is a small victory, or you could pick up a rechargeable battery pack from ModRetro. There's also a USB-C port at the bottom of the console, so you can run it straight from the wall power. The battery compartment cover, much like the shell, is also made from metal, and it has a satisfying spring mechanism to open it. There's also a link cable port for multiplayer, in case you fancy reliving the golden age of Pokemon trading. The power slider mimics the original design but loses the little plastic lock tab that used to hold cartridges in place. Without this, I almost yanked my game out mid-session, which is mildly terrifying. The cartridge slot itself looks very clean and minimalist. I'm less fond of the decals on the shell. Personally, I think these little flourishes look a little bit tacky. But overall, I think the design language of the shell does a very nice job paying tribute to the original Game Boy. With the system menu, this is where the Chromatic pulls ahead of the original Game Boy. On the home screen, you can adjust brightness and mute the audio. Under the display settings, you can toggle frame blending to be on and off. This allows you to recreate that authentic ghosting effect that the original Game Boy had. You can also adjust the color definition on the video output if you're interested in streaming, and you can also choose between classic or smooth screen transitions for any eligible games. Yes, you heard me, you can stream from the ModRetro Chromatic. You can plug it straight into your PC using the USB-C port, and you can broadcast directly to Twitch or YouTube using software such as OBS. On the controls menu, you can enable or disable the diagonals on the directional pad, and you can also see the hotkey combinations to adjust screen brightness and resetting your console. Under the system information screen, you can see details such as your firmware, player assignment, and serial number, all the boring but necessary bits. As much as I loved the original Game Boy, the only real flaw was the screen, and let's be honest, a backlit screen back then would have been a miracle, though it probably would have cut those batteries down to about 10 minutes of playtime. Thankfully, the screen on the Chromatic is excellent. In fact, it's so bright I actually have to tone it down a little. It's a 1-to-1 match for the Game Boy and Game Boy Color's screen resolution, so you can expect the visuals to be crispy and authentic. Booting up the device is lightning fast. There's no Nintendo logo, obviously, for legal reasons, so you can just jump straight into the game. I've tested multiple cartridges and everything seems to work flawlessly so far. I must admit, it's almost unsettling to have no loading times. I almost forgot how that felt. If I had one complaint, it's that I wish the console was slightly larger, closer to the original Game Boy's chunky form, but that might just be nostalgia talking, and I'm sure most people will be perfectly happy with the compact, pocketable size. So, if you want a faithful, sturdy Game Boy replacement that plays real cartridges and doesn't faff around with modern gimmicks, the ModRetro Chromatic is a pretty good choice. And for the record, I just want to make clear, this is not a sponsored review. This has been Retro Crisis, thank you for watching.